Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is sponsored by Smithy Ironware. Smithy has been a supporter of this show for so long, you might not realize how much their line of cookware has grown in the past couple of years. In addition to a range of cast iron skillets, including my beloved number 12 skillet, Smithy recently launched a new carbon steel skillet that is hand-forged by blacksmiths on the old Charleston Naval Base. And then there's the new Dutch oven, which is a thing of beauty. Featuring the only fully polished cast iron interior in the industry and a tight-fitting lid with a signature brass knob, it's perfect for all that braising and roasting. And if you like to get outdoors this time of year, a welcome addition to your campsite cooking. Check out that and the whole line of Smithy Ironware at smithy.com. That's Smithy with an EY.com. And remember that something as well made as a smithy is an heirloom for every day. Use it well, and you can use it for life. Chris Shepherd of Underbelly Hospitality in Houston, Texas, is one of the best chefs cooking right now. He's had numerous accolades from Food and Wine magazine to the James Beard Foundation, and recently Robb Report named him the best chef in the world. Creatively, he has a curiosity that keeps him learning, a confidence to say what he feels, and a heart for the people he's cooking for and with, along with those producers who are growing the products he's using. So, prime Southern Fork material. This interview was recorded in February during a guest chef cooking stop on his cookbook tour. But now, he's back in Houston using all his creativity and hustle to keep to-go and takeaway going in the midst of this crisis. And he's using Southern Smoke Foundation, a foundation he created with the festival, to get more than $500,000 in the hands of out-of-work food and beverage workers right now. In other words, Chris is a leader in his field, and he leads by remembering why he cooks, to share, bring joy, and strengthen community. Welcome to the Southern Fork, Chris Shepherd.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Thank you so much for having me.
Super happy to be able to say that.
It's really cool.
I have just been a huge fan since we met years ago at Cook It Raw. Do you remember that?
That was a long time ago. We were talking about that last night, actually.
Yeah, actually. So, been following your work for years, in Houston, eaten food numerous times. I'm just fangirl 100% over here. So I'm going to try to pull it together and ask some damn questions.
All right, let's do it. Thank you so much. Though.
Other than, you're really cool. You're here tonight. We're sitting right now, and it's never a bad day when I'm sitting in Fig.
Yeah, no, not at all.
No.
This place is amazing.
It is amazing, and really one of my favorite restaurants in Charleston, just consistent. And we're actually sitting in the same booth that I interviewed Jason Stanhope in. So he wants me to make sure and let you know that although you get this moment, this is still our booth. Okay?
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I'm good with that. He is such a talented human and such a kind and gentle person, and the way that he and his staff work, and the way this restaurant runs is something to aspire to.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal, and people ask me all the time and why I love it so much, and I think it's heart forward, but with flawless execution.
Been saying that for the past couple of days, like just talking to Mike and Jason. It's like, and Mike said it to me last night. He was like, "Our food is pretty simple," and I was like, "But it's not. Don't ever take that away. It's executed so perfectly every time." And it's beautiful.
Right.
And that's the hardest thing is execution. So.
Right. And consistent execution. So you're here tonight specifically to do a guest chef dinner, but in support of something called your first cookbook. So tell us the name of it.
It's called Cook Like a Local, which is myself and Caitlin Golan put together, and it kind of is a love letter to Houston, but not so much that. It's a love letter to our country and where we go as people.
Awesome. How was the experience of writing together and collaborating? Because you have to collaborate in the kitchen, and we're going to talk a lot about that, but writing is a different space.
I'm really lucky that Caitlin decided to do this with me, because I'm not good at that kind of thing, and she is amazing. Just having conversations and talking about food and like pushing me to learn and her learning as well, and it was an amazing thing to do. It was a lot of fun, but I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about my style of food. But more than that, like when you read the book, she captured everything perfectly.
Right.
Like the voice, the way that I speak, the way that my thoughts are, like she transcribed that so well and really got into my head, I think, a little bit. And like,
that's great.
Understood me, which is not a lot of people. It's a hard thing it's a hard thing for anybody to do.
Right,
with
of
anybody
course.
else. So.
Right. And really food is a communication. It's a language, and you've been learning the language and really celebrating the language of your region for a long time. But writing and talking about that language, which you can communicate through a medium, not through words, is a different thing.
Yeah, I'm not much on. I use a lot of spell check. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's the least. People say, "Well, I'm not good at grammar." I'm like, Fitzgerald misspelled like all the time.
Yeah,
like he was still considered okay.
Yeah,
so
true.
That's like the least part.
True.
But it has been so well received across all the fancy food peoples, and it's beautifully shot as well. So
Julie Sofer did it, and this was pretty much her first cookbook, and she is a good friend of myself and Lindsay, and she does all the work for the restaurants, and just always like if we need photos done, like I just won't do it without shooting with Julie, and she kind of understands what I'm looking at and what I see, and so for her to come in and do the book with us was a super special thing. So it was really like the dream team for me. Now,
you have done something that I think a lot of chefs wouldn't do, and that is that you had an literally award-winning restaurant. You won a beard while you were there. It was nominated for Best New Restaurant, all kinds of things. It was called Underbelly.
Yeah.
And you decided to evolve that to... Some people said blow it up. Some people said close it. Some people said, what is Chris Shepherd doing down there?
That was kind of everybody.
Those are the gists.
Yeah. Everybody kind of looks at me like I'm a little crazy, but whatever.
So lots of times we creatively create fences for ourselves, and then we work within those fences. When did you know that Underbelly's fence, that fence that you had created, needed to be transformed?
It was when we opened up 1/5, which is still like this 5-year process of a restaurant, to where we change the concept every year, and it was kind of the evolution. It's the evolution of like trying to figure out what we want to do when we grow up.
Right. Right.
What's the next restaurant that if we're going to do one more, what would it be? And so it was me going back and forth. They're pretty close to each other. There's only like 4 or 5 blocks from each other. And so I would find myself going back and forth throughout service. And I realized to myself that I wasn't doing anybody good. especially myself, because it was driving me crazy. Because I'd have to okay, this time it's 7:30. It's busy down here, and then I got to be back at 7:50 for down here, and then so it was just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And when we started looking to do, because the very first concept was 1/5 steak, and we started looking for a 200-seat restaurant. And I realized that I had a 200-seat restaurant, and that if we were going to evolve and be better, that it wasn't going to be, Underbelly wouldn't be better if I couldn't stand there every night and work the full service. And that if I was going to have to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and if we're going to add a third one or a fourth one, whatever, then I would have to do that even more. And it just it didn't make sense in my mind.
Right.
And so I felt like that Underbelly, it was time for it to go away, because I don't think that we would do our best work if it was there.
Right. That's a huge decision. That is just a huge decision.
Life-changing. Legitimately life-changing, yes.
So how did you explain this to the staff and get them on board? Because you are a captain of a ship, and you do have that staff kind of loyalty where they're yes, captain, my captain.
It was a lot of one-on-ones. The first was, I told Nick Fine, who was the chef at 1/5 at the time, and he was like, there was a lot of cursing and a lot of "what are you thinkings?" And then Lindsay walked in the room, she's like, "What is going on?
Right.
What is all the yelling about?" And it was basically just me getting yelled at.
Right.
And he goes, "Sit down." And he told her, she's like, "What are you thinking?" And I was like, "Just go home and sleep on it. Listen to what I'm saying. It makes sense." And it was basically that conversation with every single one of my managers first.
Right.
And then,
and that's a commitment too, right there, to staff. A lot of people do a roundup, explain it, and then say, "This is how it is,"
Well, I wasn't going to do it if everybody wasn't on board.
Right.
Because if people aren't fully vested into it, then it doesn't work. And then it was like, so what are we gonna do?
Because it's Underbelly was super successful. It's not like it wasn't declining. It wasn't slow. It was still making all the lists. Everybody would ask me about it. So you're kind of getting it at the height.
Yeah, it's win the Super Bowl and retire, I guess. In a
Go
way.
to Disney World?
Yeah.
And Disney World is Georgia James.
Yeah. So that
after all of that,
that was the big thing, is that I decided I was going to do that, and we're going to gut it. And I was going to close it. We're going to gut it and open Georgia James, the steakhouse, which is Georgia is my mother and James is my father. So the name just made sense. And as a child of the Midwest, steakhouses, that's like in the blood. Yeah. But it was one of these things, like, I don't want to do a normal steakhouse.
Right.
I want to know, you kind of know, like, if I were to say, hey, tomorrow night we're going to go to this steakhouse, you kind of already know what you're going to do.
Right.
You're going to get this as a app, you're going to get this as a side. This is probably the steak you're going to get. And then you're going to get this dessert. Like, you already know, it's pretty much laid out for you. And I wanted to not do that. I wanted it to be completely different than that thought process.
So reimagining the steakhouse.
Yeah, what would it look like if you came over to our house on a Sunday night?
Right.
And I said, we're going to do this steakhouse dinner, and we're going to do, seafood tower, and it turned into, a lot of seafood towers you get into, and it's like, you feel like you have to take a shower after you eat one.
Totally.
And so I didn't want people to do that, and it's already expensive to begin with. So maybe we should do the labor on that and not just throw like king crab legs up there, and like you have to cut them and you have to pull out the. I went into one place and I got a whole lobster, and it was like, are you seriously? Like,
right?
Because there's so much water inside that cavity, you have to and it was kind of.
It made me be thinking through that.
This is like, no, we can't do this. We have to do salads and just everything already done for people.
Right,
and so,
and
then like understanding where our beef comes from, and knowing that like these are our farmers that do this. That doesn't happen. Because traditionally it's like, most people just source from packing houses.
Right.
And then it goes into like super hot plates with butter all over it. I don't want to do that either. Because I'm already going to cook your steak right. Like, why am I going to put it on a sizzler platter and then overcook it. Putting it in broilers, and instead of like, why don't we just cast iron searing everything and then basting everything with garlic and thyme and butter and giving like textures. And so, and the sides, like working with farmers to bring in product and utilizing seasons instead of like, why do I need to have cream corn in January? Like that doesn't make any sense. So,
right. So taking some of those lessons that
definitely.
You have taught yourself through the years and actually embedding yourself in the Houston culture, and
there's still like nods to underbelly on that menu where there's like, like a Korean seared short rib type dish, like where, there's still these nods to who we are as humans and who we are as Houstonians, and making sure that we're doing that food still.
Let's talk about who we are as Houstonians for a second, because I think you're such a great ambassador for the city. And for those people that are listening to the Southern Fork, Texas is, a country, basically.
It's big.
It's super big. Houston is the most diverse city in America. And I think a lot of people are still getting hip to that idea.
It's hard to believe.
Right. It's hard to believe. But can you talk about what it means to be Houstonian and how that came through in your book, and then that is a larger idea of how you see it is to be American?
Yeah,
that's just an easy early morning question.
It really is, actually. I mean, because it's what I think about all the time. It's like Houstonians are so open and loving and cherishing of their own, and for the most part, everybody wants to learn about everybody else. And like, if there's new restaurants, like you're going to need to point people in the direction, but once you point them, they're going. And they're telling their friends, and they're gonna, like, it doesn't matter what it is, if it's like Indian food or Vietnamese food or Middle Eastern or Mexican or Salvadorian, or just any kind of restaurant that there is. Like, there's 4 million plus people in Houston. So when you start talking about it, it's like 680 square miles. And so there's, it's one of these things like, everybody wants to learn. And everybody wants to see what everybody else is doing. Like some of the busiest restaurants, like there's a Vietnamese restaurant right outside of downtown, and you can't get a table at lunch because it's everybody from downtown, and they're not Vietnamese going in there and having pho or banh cuon or goi vit or whatever it may be. And so and people want to learn and they want to be a part of it. It's if we can take that message as Houstonians and start to branch out into the world, and then it just makes everybody a better place. And not to say that it doesn't happen for any. I would never say that, but I just see what I see where I live, and how it's.
It seems like those paths are worn.
Like it's not always great. It's not always marshmallows and candy canes, right? But for the most part, the city tries to be very open and understanding and loving and nurturing. And when you can do that, that makes a city, especially when it's that big, pretty amazing to be in.
Now, we talk a lot about going to other cultures, eating that food and learning. And you just mentioned the word learn. They want to learn. People want to learn. Houstonians want to learn. What is something that you have learned about yourself and the world through cooking in that city?
That's super annoying
so much?
For the most part. I'm super annoying.
You're not super annoying.
No, it's like if I find something I really like it, and it's not even that. Like I'm just naturally curious in general, and so I want to spend my time. Like if I go into some place, I'm going to talk to everybody there that works there, and like, how do you do this, and like, what are you doing, and just the questions. Like it's more than food, and that's what the book is about. For the most part, it's like cook like a local doesn't mean local ingredients. It's about understanding your surroundings and knowing who's in your city, and wanting to not just learn, but be friends and like. Be a part of the society and the culture and the people around you. And you don't have to look like somebody else to actually have good conversation and like be friends and it be an awesome world. So it's like I can walk into like London Scissor was a perfect example for me. It was like I just wanted to learn more about Indian food. So I just went in and they were like, I kept going in, and finally the guy's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you ordering like 16 things every time you come in? And they're always different. Do you not have a favorite? Are we not doing it right? And I was like, no. I want to learn it all. And then he's like, well, I'm going to sit down. I'm like, sit down, let's talk. And then it's like, AJ comes and we just sit down and we start talking.
Suddenly he has a name.
Yeah. And
not
Auntie,
just a restaurant.
yeah,
right.
And Auntie and Nish come out and his mom and dad. And we sit and talk. And like now if I have questions about anything Indian, I know that like it's a 3-hour meeting.
Right.
She's like, come down. And I go down, and it's like 2.5 hours of tea and conversation about how have you been, how's your family, like, and then me asking the same thing, like, how's your nephews and your godchildren and like your grandchildren, like, and then it's like 5 minutes of what I really need to talk to her about,
Right.
and then 25 minutes of like hugs and goodbyes.
Right.
And so
right.
it's really, you can immerse yourself through food into family, and it's really a beautiful thing.
I have a lot of chefs who listen to the show, which is, I'm very grateful for.
Yeah.
Thank you, chefs who are listening. But I think in the staffing crisis, there's some of you that don't really, and it's a national crisis, but there's some of you that don't feel that burn as much as other people.
Yeah.
And I think it's because you are creating a family. How do you build that environment? An environment like where we're sitting in right now at Fig, or inside Georgia James, where you said, I'm not going to do this until everybody's on board, until everyone agrees. How do you build that as a professional when you have ideas?
Well, everybody's got a voice, right? And everybody's voice should be heard, whether it's right or wrong, or if you agree with it or disagree with it. Not to say it would be right or wrong, but everybody should be heard. And if you can move together, then it works better. And that's just how it works. But I'm always trying to create opportunity for people. And I'm always trying to create.
Give me an example of that. How do you create an opportunity for somebody in the kitchen?
Well, I think, as far as like as opening restaurants go,
Right.
Let's just talk about that.
Right. With 4, you've had some experience there.
I learn every day. But there's capital, and then there's personal capital, right? And when we talk about opening a restaurant, do we have, how much capital is it to do this? But then how much personal capital is it? Are we staffed accordingly? Do we have the people that can do this? Will it hurt anything else if we do open up another restaurant? Are we giving these people the right opportunity? Do they want to do that opportunity? Because we learned that if that person says yes, but doesn't feel passionate about that, then it doesn't make sense.
Right. And it doesn't work very well.
No. So it's finding people that are very passionate about that project.
Right.
And making sure that they do it.
Awesome. And are there a lot of meetings? Are you talking all the time in the kitchen? Do you have a quiet kitchen?
So many meetings.
Yeah,
no.
I knew the answer to that one.
Yeah. I don't tell people no music. I don't tell people like nothing. I think if people can enjoy themselves and not come into a fearful environment or like, but a free, loving, fun, they become better cooks. It may be a little ruckusy at times, but like you just have to understand that like they're going to cook better at the end of the day. And so it's, the staff is going to be more motivated to do a better job. And
do you are they cool to wear earbuds and stuff
No.
or no? No, so no earbuds.
No,
I feel
no.
like when I go into a kitchen and everyone's
not a chance.
silent, it's not going to be good food. You can just know. They're not cooking as a team.
Every kitchen has its own little speaker system.
Right.
And every day a different person will generally put their playlist on. So like you may listen to hip hop one day or some metal one day, but the smooth jazz is really kind of the weird one that I don't understand yet. I'm like, what is this? And they're like, it's concert saxophone, chef. And I'm like, what is that? Like, how do you get hyped for service for this? It's like, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's letting people be who they are.
So now that it's open and you've opened 2 more places since then, is it, I know, don't look down. You're fine. Just keep going. Just keep swimming. How has it differed or been compared to what the idea that you had?
Well, I never really had the idea. It just happened. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
Like I never expected it. I only expected I didn't ever really, like years ago, expect to have 1, much less 4. And
right.
probably more at this going into it. But,
But blowing up Underbelly or transforming it.
Well, there was Haymarket at first and then Underbelly. And then, standing out in front of 1/5 and saying that I was going to close Underbelly. And then, what do I do with that philosophy of Underbelly?
Right.
How does that still translate? Because that's always going to be me. Yeah, we can name the group now Underbelly Hospitality, and that's cool and all, but the whole Underbelly philosophy of like empowering our city and showing our city off and believing in who we are, and where does that translate? And I was like, well, there's that 70-seat restaurant right in the middle. that just closed. Let's cut that. So yeah,
you just have contractors on speed dial now.
Yeah.
You're just like,
I wish they would move faster at times, but yeah, that's normal. But yeah, we closed Underbelly April 1st of 2018, and then opened up UB Preserve May 8th of 2018. Then closed 1/5 Romance Languages July 31st. Then opened up Romance Languages or 1/5 Mediterranean September 1st. Then Southern Smoke, the festival, on September 30th, and then Georgia James October 15th.
Right.
So 3 restaurants and a festival in 6 months.
And you're alive. You're alive.
Yeah.
It's proven that you just never.
I can do it again. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Not really.
What's the best thing that's happening at Georgia James right now?
The best thing? Smiles. Mm-hmm. Smiles and good food. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a fun atmosphere. Mm-hmm. It's loud. It's ruckus. It's, you know, you walk in and you're like, this doesn't look like a steakhouse. And then you're like, is that Rage Against the Machine playing? And it's like, yeah, it is. And then it's like, is that Billy Squier now? It's like, yeah, it is. And it's like, just like little touches and thoughts, and how do we make customers' experience a little bit better? Our guest, how do we make our guest feel comfortable, but at the same time make them feel uncomfortable? Because I'm not going to give you a filet.
Nice.
I'm not going to do it.
So it's that pushing, but saying, trust me.
Yeah. I mean,
you can trust me.
It's
good.
95. So
right.
I think that a lot of people do trust it. But then there's a lot of people like, you don't have blue cheese stuffed olives and you don't have a filet on the menu. You're not going to make it 6 weeks. And it's like, okay.
Let's see.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
If you want a filet, look, get the porterhouse.
There's one in there.
It's on there. you just, whoever you're with needs to eat a strip.
Yeah.
Pretty clear.
I love it. Okay, so multiple restaurants and a festival, which we haven't even talked about, but raises millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. And so, what makes you hungry? What's next? I mean, do I even want to ask that?
You probably don't, because there's a lot of ideas. I got a lot coming up, but it's just executing it right and making sure that we're not getting ahead of ourselves, and making sure that the personal capital is there.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. It's like, can I pull people from other places that I've worked with before and say, how do you work here, or whatever it may be, or if, like I said, if somebody's not totally vested into it, I don't want to do it.
Okay. You've created this amazing job for yourself that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and more exciting for us that are watching on the sidelines, and delicious too. But what is one aspect of this job that you have created that really showcases a particular aspect of your personality? So like something that fits like a puzzle piece.
Insanity, maybe. I don't know. The people that look at me like, you're a nut job, and it's like, well, maybe kind of. No, I think the thing that I'm really proud of is that people look at Houston in a different light, and people can go out into any one of these restaurants and feel really comfortable about eating that someplace that they've never done that before. And if it's like, oh, Chris said to go eat, this random little Mexican barbecue place.
Oh yeah, people should follow you on Instagram because you shout out all the time, and everyone just is like, "Oh, he's going there. I should go there."
Yeah, if there's a place that spit roast goats in the dining room, you should probably go.
Yeah,
because and so if we can work together, then our city becomes better.
Right.
And that's the love that we all have for Houston, and anywhere you live, you can have that same kind of love. It's just expressing it.
Right. And you express it through food.
I try.
What keeps you up at night?
Thinking about how the staff's doing. It's not just like, for me, it's not like just they don't work for us. We work together, and like, I think about my prep cooks and my cooks and like their families, and like understanding that like, it's this person's been a prep cook for 3 years, but I still have to think about, their kids and their significant others, and, how are they doing? And it's hard when there's like, you have 200 plus employees and you think about all of them all the time. It's a lot.
Right. And you're away from them right now, but you said that's okay because
they're good people. They got good people running them, and it's having people around you that make things better. Like, I'm supposed to get tickets to the rodeo for my butcher, and I think I only got 4, and I need to get 5. So I think I need to make that call, like, because he likes Tejano night every year, like that's his thing. But he's been with me 20 years.
Wow.
And so, like, yeah, I need to get him another ticket. Like, that's legitimately what I'm thinking right this second.
You're like, oh, I got to text that as soon as we get off.
Oh, I do.
And I have a magic picnic basket. It also involves the fact that I can time travel. I can conscript anybody to cook anything that you've had. I can source stuff. And I can cook a little bit, too. But I'm not going to suggest that unless it's dire.
Why not?
What's going to be in that picnic basket that I'm bringing you?
Okay. You know what? I'm always open for surprises, and whatever somebody wants to cook or somebody wants to bring, it's like super amazing that someone took the time to do that. So I'm very much a person that lives in the time and place at the moment. And I'm cool with, like, if you just brought, like, a sandwich. I'd be like, that's awesome. Like, thank you so much for just the thought and thinking of us.
I do know that.
And so, yeah, that's...
But is there something that you love, like protein wise or vegetable wise? Do you have a favorite?
I love American Chinese food. I love shitty General Tso's chicken. It makes me so happy.
Good, because I can share a table with you. Because one of my favorite meals, especially when I'm hungover, is chicken chow mein.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. Well, if people want to learn more about Chris Shepherd and his growing number of restaurants in Houston, Texas, you can go to the Southern Fork Talk. If you like what you hear, please understand that I like doing this. I think it's pretty evident. I get to eat and talk to cool people all the time. But share. Let somebody else know that there's someplace good to eat. Whether it's Houston, whether it's your own neighborhood. And the best way to enjoy food more is to learn who is behind it, who is cooking it, who is growing it, and who's making it for you every night. So thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Till next time.
Let's do it.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouthful. I am sitting inside my little walk-in closet, talking to you, looking at a mic, hoping that some of you are listening. I know you are. I see the stats. Hello, Australia. Hope you're doing okay down there. The news is hard. The news is difficult. And as a human, I don't want to watch that 24 hours a day. But we cannot turn away from this time. And I would ask you, Southern Fork listeners, whoever you are, to think about this time. We are hearing right now that this is exposing, viruses do what they do, and they are always exposing the inequalities. And I don't know about you, but I am seeing a lot of that. It can feel overwhelming to think of that, and it can also feel despondent. I bet y'all have felt some despondence. Is that a word? Because I have felt it too. Like, it's just too much. There's just too much. How do we help? You help from where you are. Chris Shepherd is a great chef, and he is fun to be around. So he started Southern Smoke Foundation based on a festival, and he got a lot of people together to raise money. And they use that money to help food and beverage workers in need. Now, right now, I mentioned that they have raised more than $500,000 in the past 6 weeks for out-of-work food and beverage workers. That's one restaurant group. And the motto of their foundation, taking care of our own. Who is your own today? Who do you need to take care of today? Wondering how you can affect change in your world wherever that world is. What can you do? I'm really thinking hard about that. And I have a voice. What do I need to be saying right now? And I just feel like I need to be asking all of you to join me and say, I got to do something from where I am. I hope you'll consider that. Use this time to figure out how you can be the change you want to see in the world. And if you call me a hippie, Well, guess what? I am. I just like to wear lipstick. All right. Hopefully I'll talk to you again soon. I will. I'll talk to you next week.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you gonna eat all that?